I bought a house without telling my parents, then found out they copied my key and promised it to my sister's whole family. The brown paper grocery bag slips from my fingers before I fully process what I'm seeing. The jar of pasta sauce shatters against my pristine hardwood floor, splashing crimson across the golden oak like blood at a crime scene. 4-3 heartbeats. I stand frozen in my own doorway, keys still dangling from my hand, my breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. My mother and sister are inside my bungalow. My bungalow that I'd shown them photos of only 3 days ago during what I thought was a casual coffee visit. My bungalow, whose address I had deliberately, carefully, intentionally never shared with them. What are you doing here? My voice sounds like it's coming from underwater, distant and hollow. Claire whirls around, measuring tape stretched between her manicured hands. She's been measuring my guest bedroom, my home office, her expression flickering from startled to something irritatingly entitled, like she's been caught arranging flowers, not invading my sanctuary. Madeline, you're home early. Mom straightens from where she's been rearranging my sofa and armchair, creating a configuration that makes my skin crawl. We thought you'd be at the marketing firm until 5:30. That doesn't answer my question. I step carefully over the growing puddle of marinara, my sneakers sticking slightly to the floor with each step. The sound makes my stomach turn. How did you get in here? Mom waves dismissively, like I've asked about the weather. Oh, I had a spare key made yesterday when I stopped by to congratulate you on the promotion. The memory surfaces instantly, Mom asking to use the bathroom during her brief visit, her designer purse left suspiciously behind when she disappeared down the hallway. At the time, I'd thought nothing of it. My mistake. You took my keys and copied them? The tremor in my voice surprises me. Without asking? Don't be so dramatic, sweetheart. Mom busies herself fluffing a throw pillow that was perfectly fine before. We're just figuring out how to make this work for everyone. Make what work? The question forms but doesn't leave my mouth because suddenly, like puzzle pieces clicking into place, I know. The realization crashes into me with the force of a freight train. Fragments of childhood flash before me, Claire's elaborate Sweet 16 party with a hired DJ and catered dinner, while my own celebration that same year had been a grocery store sheet cake in our living room. Mom's dismissive, "It's just not in the budget for you, honey," contrasted with the lavish spending for my sister that never seemed to have limits. When I announced I was house hunting last month, Mom hadn't congratulated me. She'd called Claire immediately. I'd overheard her through the thin kitchen wall. Opportunities, Claire. Think about the opportunities. This is my home, I say, each word carved from ice. Not yours. Not ours. Mine. I cross to Claire and pluck the spare key from her hand, where she's been fidgeting with it like a worry stone. Her fingers close reflexively around it, then release. You can't seriously be planning to live here alone. Claire's forehead creases with practiced concern, the same expression she wore when convincing our parents she needed a car for college while I rode the bus. This place has 3 bedrooms, Madeline. The kids need space to spread out. Your housing situation is not my problem. The steadiness in my voice surprises even me. For the first time in 32 years, I'm not automatically apologizing, not scrambling to find a solution that accommodates everyone else's needs while ignoring my own. After everything we've done for you? Mom's eyes widen dramatically, her hand pressed to her chest like she's having heart palpitations. Your sister's children need proper bedrooms. Family helps family, Madeline. You know that. The familiar weight of obligation presses down on my shoulders like a lead blanket. A lifetime of conditioning that whispers I should sacrifice for Claire because that's what I've always done, that's what good sisters do, that's what keeps peace in the family. But something fundamental has shifted inside me since I signed those mortgage papers. The trembling in my hands stops as clarity washes through me like cold, clean water. You have exactly 2 minutes to leave before I call the police. I point toward the door, my arm steady as a compass needle. Starting now. You wouldn't dare. Mom's voice sharpens to a blade. 1 minute, 50 seconds. They leave. Mom slams the door hard enough to rattle the windows and make my new neighbor's dog start barking. I slide the deadbolt into place with a satisfying click that echoes through my empty house. But as I kneel to clean marinara sauce from the grout lines, I can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning. The phone rings exactly 23 minutes later as I'm still scrubbing red stains from the hardwood. Dad's name flashes on the screen like a warning signal. What the hell do you think you're doing? His voice booms through the speaker the moment I answer. Your mother is in tears. You're tearing this family apart with your selfishness. I say nothing, scrubbing harder at a stubborn crimson spot near the kitchen island. The silence stretches between us like a taut wire. Claire needs help, Madeline. That's what family does. You've always understood that before. Always understood. Always accommodated. Always sacrificed my dreams, my space, my peace for the greater good of keeping everyone else comfortable. Not anymore, I whisper, but he's still shouting, not hearing me, probably not even interested in hearing me. After I hang up, I stare at the family photo on my mantle. Mom, Dad, Claire with her perfect husband Jeremy and their 3 children, and me, slightly off-center as always, wearing the strained smile I've perfected over 3 decades. For the first time, I see us clearly. Really see the pattern of sacrifice I've been conditioned to accept as normal. I place the frame face down on the shelf. This house is mine. This life is mine. And I'm done giving pieces of it away to people who see me as a resource rather than a person. A day later, the Facebook notification pings while I'm sipping my morning coffee, a rare moment of peace interrupted by the digital world's demands. Something about Claire tagging me in a post. I tap the icon expecting another passive-aggressive family photo where I'm awkwardly positioned at the edge like an afterthought. What I find stops my breath entirely. A post from 3 weeks ago, before I'd even closed on my bungalow, shows Claire's 3 children squeezed into their shared bedroom like sardines in a can. The caption reads, "Kids are finally getting their own space soon. Folded hands blessed. Family first always. #grateful #new beginnings." My thumb hovers over the screen as I scroll through the comments, each one making my stomach sink deeper. "Which bedroom does Emma get?" asks one of Claire's mom friends. Claire's response makes my blood run cold, "The blue one with the bay window. Perfect for her art supplies. The twins will share the master bedroom across the hall, so much room for their bunk beds." Another comment, "What about the 3rd bedroom?" Mom thinks it should stay a guest room for when Grandma visits from Phoenix, Claire had replied with a heart emoji. My coffee mug slips from my fingers, splashing hot liquid across my bare feet. I barely notice the burn as the timeline crystallizes with horrifying clarity. 3 weeks ago. They were planning this 3 weeks ago, before I'd even signed my mortgage papers, before I'd gotten the keys, before I'd moved a single box into this house. I bolt to the bathroom, my stomach heaving as the magnitude hits me like a physical blow. This wasn't an impulsive decision after seeing my beautiful new home. This was calculated. Premeditated. They had been strategizing how to take over my sanctuary before I'd even purchased it. My phone buzzes with a text notification as I rinse the bitter taste from my mouth. It's from Dad, but I can tell immediately he's accidentally included me in a group message meant for Mom and Claire. "Don't worry about Madeline's little tantrum," Mom has written. "She'll cave once you're settled in. She always does." 2 hearts. The shaking starts in my hands and spreads until my whole body trembles against the cool bathroom tiles. She always does. 3 words that summarize my entire existence. 3 words that have defined every major decision in my life. 3 words I'm going to prove wrong. The family dinner invitation arrives via text the next evening, as predictable as sunrise. "We need to talk about finding a solution that works for everyone," Dad writes. "Your mother's making pot roast and mashed potatoes. 7 o'clock sharp. Don't be late." I should refuse. Every instinct screams at me to stay home, to maintain the boundary I've drawn. But some withered, hopeful part of me, the part that still remembers being Daddy's little girl, wonders if maybe, just maybe, they've had time to reconsider. Maybe they understand now that what they're asking isn't reasonable. When I arrive at my childhood home, the dining room table is set with Mom's good china, the wedding set she only brings out for special occasions and guilt trips. Dad, Mom, and Claire sit clustered on one side like a tribunal, an empty chair waiting for me on the other side of the table. The division couldn't be more obvious if they'd drawn a battle line down the middle with chalk. "Madeline, sweetie," Mom says, her smile so tight it looks painful. "We're so glad you could join us. You look thin. Are you eating enough?" Before I can respond to her automatic criticism disguised as concern, Dad slides a manila folder across the polished table. The sound of paper against wood makes me flinch. "We found the perfect solution." Inside are printouts of 5-bedroom houses, all within a 3-mile radius of Emma and the twins' elementary school. Each listing has been annotated in Claire's careful handwriting with notes like perfect playroom, and huge backyard for the kids, and Jeremy's workshop space and garage. These are lovely, I say carefully, my voice measured. For Claire and Jeremy. Dad clears his throat like he's about to deliver a corporate presentation. For all of you. Together. One big happy family under one roof. We've already spoken with your mortgage broker, Mom adds, stirring her iced tea with mechanical precision. Transferring your loan to a different property is quite manageable. The price difference would be easily covered if everyone contributes their fair share. My mouth goes dry as desert sand. You contacted my mortgage broker? Just preliminary discussions, Mom says, waving away my concern like she's shooing a fly. Nothing binding, of course. Your furniture won't all fit, obviously, Claire chimes in, cutting into her pot roast with surgical precision. We'd need to sell the duplicates. The kids' bunk beds are priority, and Jeremy's leather recliner is practically new. The front door opens, and Jeremy strolls in 20 minutes late as usual, still in his construction clothes and smelling like sawdust. He nods at me before turning to Dad like I'm invisible. I was thinking about the garage situation, Frank. The left bay would work better for my truck if Madeline doesn't mind parking on the street. Her Honda's small enough. The casual way they're dividing up my property, my home that they've never contributed a penny toward, leaves me speechless. My hands curl into fists beneath the linen napkin. Madeline, Dad says, his voice dropping into the serious tone he used when I was 7 and had disappointed him by crying at my piano recital. Refusing to help would show that you don't really care about being part of this family. Mom reaches across the table, not quite touching my hand but close enough that I can smell her vanilla perfume. Think about your relationship with Emma and the twins, sweetheart. Children remember who was there for them when they needed space to grow. Everyone in town knows family comes first, Claire adds, her eyes narrowing slightly. What would people think if they knew you had all that space while your sister's children are cramped into one bedroom? The weight of their expectations presses against my chest like a physical force. For years, my entire identity in this family has been Claire's supportive sister, never just Madeline, with her own dreams and needs and right to exist independently. I spoke with Kevin at your marketing firm, Dad mentions casually, as if he hasn't just crossed yet another massive boundary. He understands that family crises might require some flexibility in your work schedule to help Claire coordinate the move. After all we've done for you, Mom adds, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. Providing a home for you all those years, supporting you through college. The memory surfaces, writing rent checks every month throughout my 4 years at State while living in their basement, watching them pay Claire's full tuition and sorority fees without question. The selective amnesia would be impressive if it weren't so manipulative. The silence stretches as they wait for my familiar capitulation. The script is worn smooth from decades of use. Madeline protests weekly, family applies pressure, Madeline surrenders because she always does. But something fundamental has shifted inside me since finding them in my house, measuring my space like it already belonged to them. The pattern is suddenly visible, like those hidden picture puzzles that snap into focus once you see them correctly. I stand slowly, carefully placing my napkin beside my untouched dinner. Watch me not help, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. I walk toward the front door, ignoring their calls to return, their demands to sit back down and be reasonable, their threats about what this will do to family relationships. In my Honda, with the doors locked and engine running, my phone begins buzzing with texts and calls like an angry wasp's nest. I switch it to silent and drive home through the familiar streets of my childhood, wondering if I've just burned every bridge I have. But as I pull into my own driveway and see my house, glowing warmly in the porch light, I realize some bridges are meant to burn. 3 days after the dinner ambush, my phone erupts with notifications like tiny explosions, each one jolting me from whatever momentary peace I've managed to find. Against my better judgment, I make the mistake of checking Claire's latest Facebook masterpiece. Her 3 children are arranged on a pull-out sofa, faces sculpted into exaggerated pouts that would make Broadway actors jealous. The caption reads, "When family abandonment means your babies don't have proper bedrooms, broken heart family first. Unless you're too selfish to remember where you came from. #praying forguidance #family struggles." My stomach churns as I scroll through the sympathetic comments. People I've known since elementary school offer prayers and support for Claire's difficult situation. 3 different ladies from First Methodist promise to have conversations with me about Christian family values. Mrs. Patterson, who taught me in Sunday school, shares the post with crying emojis. My finger hovers over the reply button, but what could I possibly say that wouldn't add gasoline to this carefully constructed fire? A text from Mrs. Washington, my 3rd grade teacher, makes my hand shake. Your mother showed me pictures of your beautiful home at the grocery store yesterday. Such a large space for just one person. I raised 6 children in half that size during the Depression era. Food for thought, dear. I set the phone face down on my kitchen counter and grip the granite edge until my knuckles turn white. The betrayal burns in my throat like acid. Not just from Claire, I've learned to expect manipulation from her, but from Mom. She's been showing photos of my home to anyone who'll listen, complete with commentary about forgetting your roots and what happens when success goes to someone's head. The doorbell rings, sending my heart rate into overdrive. Through the peephole, I spot Pastor Williams on my front step, worn leather Bible tucked under his arm like evidence in a court case. This isn't a coincidence. This is psychological warfare. I'm sorry, I'm not available for visitors today. I call through the solid oak door. Madeline Patricia Carson, I've known you since you were 8 years old singing in the children's choir. Your family is deeply concerned about your spiritual well-being, and as your pastor. I didn't request spiritual counseling, I interrupt, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. Please respect my privacy. His heavy sigh carries through the door like disappointment made audible. I'll be praying for your heart to soften, child. Pride comes before the fall. After his footsteps fade down the front walk, I sink into my kitchen chair and make a list of everything that's happened in the week since I evicted my family from my house. The scale of their retaliation becomes clearer and more frightening with each item I write down. Yesterday brought the first concrete evidence of how far they're willing to go to maintain control. My mortgage statement hadn't arrived in my mailbox, so I called Northwest Federal Credit Union to inquire. We've been sending your statements to the updated forwarding address, the customer service representative explained cheerfully. Your parents contacted us about temporarily redirecting your financial documents to their home for safekeeping during your transition period. The violation leaves me breathless and shaking. They nearly succeeded without my knowledge. If I hadn't been vigilant about tracking my payments, what else have they quietly commandeered? What other pieces of my carefully constructed independence are they dismantling behind the scenes? Sleep becomes nearly impossible. I lie awake cataloging potential vulnerabilities, jumping at every creak and rustle outside my windows. The sound of cars in the driveway next door makes my heart pound. Checking my mail each morning fills me with dread. What fresh manipulation will be waiting? What new guilt trip has been crafted overnight? This morning brought an email from my homeowners association that made my blood run cold. My parents had contacted the HOA president with concerns about potential commercial activity at my address, a complete fabrication that requires me to respond with formal documentation proving I occasionally work from home but don't run a business. The cost of this estrangement keeps mounting in ways I never anticipated. But when I consider the alternative, a lifetime of being seen as nothing more than Claire's support system, an extension of my family rather than a person in my own right, the price seems worth paying. I start small but systematic. Password changes for every account. Mail forwarding directly to my office. Security cameras installed at every entrance to my property. I document each unwanted contact, each social media post, each attempt to access my personal information without permission. The methodical process of protecting myself steadies my shaking hands and gives me something constructive to focus on besides the growing pit of anxiety in my stomach. When the security company technician finishes installing my comprehensive surveillance system, I feel a strange mixture of sadness and relief. My home, the place that was supposed to represent freedom and independence, now resembles a fortress designed to keep out the people who should love and protect me most. The next morning brings a small miracle to my desk at Hammond & Associates Marketing. A loaf of homemade banana bread wrapped in brown paper with a note tucked beneath the twine. Sorry I mentioned your new place to my sister-in-law. Not everyone thinks you're wrong, you know. Some of us wish we'd been brave enough to set boundaries years ago. Angela from HR. I hadn't realized how isolated and judged I'd been feeling until that small gesture of support brings unexpected tears to my eyes. But the moment of peace proves short-lived. That evening, I pull into my driveway to find Claire's burgundy SUV parked brazenly in front of my house like she owns the place. Through my front window, I can see shadows moving inside my sanctuary. They're in there again, violating my space like it's their right. This time, the familiar surge of violation comes with something new, cold crystalline anger that feels sharp enough to cut glass. This time, I don't hesitate. I call the police from my Honda, sitting in my own driveway like a refugee from my own life, watching strangers peek from behind curtains at the neighborhood drama unfolding. The dispatcher's calm professionalism grounds me as I report the break-in with steady precision. By the time Officer Martinez arrives in his patrol car, my family has noticed me sitting outside. They spill onto my front porch like actors taking the stage, each one wearing their costume of righteous indignation. Mom's face contorts with wounded martyrdom, Dad's burns red with paternal fury, and Claire clutches her designer purse to her chest like armor, her children nowhere in sight but probably being weaponized somewhere in the background. She's throwing her own flesh and blood out on the street. Claire cries dramatically as Officer Martinez approaches, her voice carrying to every house within 3 blocks. "We were just visiting. We're family." "With what key?" I ask calmly, stepping out of my car and retrieving my phone. I have security camera footage showing unauthorized entry into my home. I hand the phone to Officer Martinez, who watches the recorded violation with professional interest. The timestamp clearly shows Claire using a key to enter my house 15 minutes before I arrived home from work. Mom steps forward, her eyes darting toward the gathering crowd of neighbors like she's playing to an audience. "How could you call the police on your own blood, Madeline? What will people think about our family?" The question that has controlled my entire existence, what will people think, suddenly seems absurdly irrelevant. Like asking what strangers think about the color of my bedroom walls or whether I prefer tea over coffee. "I don't care what they think," I say, my voice carrying clearly in the evening air. "I care what I think. And I think this ends today." Officer Martinez escorts them from my property with a formal warning about trespassing laws. As Claire's SUV disappears around the corner, I realize something profound has shifted. I've spent 32 years afraid of disappointing my family, measuring my worth by their approval, trying to earn love through constant sacrifice. But I've never once considered how consistently they've disappointed me, how little they've valued my independence, my choices, my right to a life that isn't defined by what I can provide for them. The next day, I drive to the law offices of Andrews & Associates, where my college friend Nathan practices family law. His corner office overlooks the river, filled with leather-bound books and the scent of success earned through helping people protect themselves from their own relatives. "They're counting on your guilt, Madeline," Nathan tells me as we review the cease and desist letter he's drafted. "They've weaponized it your whole life. The key is documentation, every violation, every manipulation, every boundary they cross." I spend the weekend creating a comprehensive file. Text messages demanding I think about the children. Facebook posts designed to humiliate me into submission. Voicemails filled with threats disguised as concern. The security camera footage of repeated attempts to enter my home without permission. When Claire shows up at my workplace the following Monday, mascara strategically smudged and eyes red from what I now recognize as performed rather than genuine emotion, my coworkers form an unexpected protective barrier. Angela from HR intercepts her at reception. Janet and Monica from Creative Services happen to join me for lunch when Claire tries to ambush me in the parking lot with her 3 children in tow as props. The contrast is striking and illuminating. These people who owe me nothing respect my boundaries without question, while my family, who should protect and support me, tramples every line I draw like it's their God-given right. With each passing day, I find my voice growing stronger and clearer. No becomes easier to say without automatic apology. "This doesn't work for me" rolls off my tongue without guilt. The phrase "I've made my decision" no longer feels like a betrayal of some unwritten family contract. At home, I change the locks again and upgrade my security system with motion-activated cameras that send alerts directly to my phone. I gather every piece of evidence documenting years of manipulation and exploitation. The folder grows thick with proof I hope never to need but feel infinitely safer having. The notification appears on my phone screen while I'm in a client meeting on Thursday afternoon. The doorbell camera shows Mom on my front step, glancing nervously over her shoulder while trying different keys in my lock like a burglar casing a house. None of the keys work. I've changed the locks twice since our last confrontation. Her expression darkens with each failed attempt, and I watch her reach into her purse for what appears to be yet another copied key. My heart pounds as I save the footage with trembling fingers. This isn't over. This is escalation. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I'm not afraid. I'm angry. I'm prepared. And I'm done being their victim. Sunday afternoon finds me spread across my dining room table like a detective solving a cold case, assembling evidence with the methodical precision of someone who's finally stopped making excuses for the inexcusable. Every violation, every manipulation, every lie is documented with timestamps and screenshots, cross-referenced and catalogued. The security camera footage plays on my laptop, Mom trying 4 different keys in my front door while I was presenting the Morrison account proposal at work. I add the timestamp to my master spreadsheet and feel satisfaction rather than the familiar guilt that used to consume me. This is incredibly thorough, Nathan says, adjusting his reading glasses as he reviews my documentation. My lawyer friend has squeezed me into his Sunday afternoon, bringing coffee and legal expertise into my living room. The cease and desist letter will be ready for delivery Monday morning. Are you prepared to serve it yourself? I need to do this face to face, I tell him, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. It's time they understand this isn't a phase or a tantrum they can wait out. That evening, I add another recording to my growing collection. A voicemail from the mortgage company's fraud prevention department. We received a call from someone claiming to be your mother, asking about refinancing options and requesting we mail information to a different address. We wanted to verify this was authorized. My therapist Dr. Brooks's advice echoes in my mind as I organize everything. Document, don't engage. Facts, not emotions. Boundaries, not arguments. Monday morning, I place the certified letter directly into Mom's manicured hands at her front door. She doesn't open the envelope, just stares at me with wounded eyes designed to make me crumble with guilt. You'll regret this someday, Madeline, she whispers, but her voice lacks its usual conviction. Maybe, I reply calmly. But I'll regret not protecting myself even more. 3 blessed days pass in silence. No calls, no texts, no unexpected visits, no Facebook posts painting me as the family villain. I sleep through the night for the first time in weeks, wake up without immediately checking my security cameras, and actually enjoy my morning coffee instead of dreading what fresh manipulation might be waiting. Thursday brings the inevitable escalation, but I'm ready for it. I'm debugging code at my desk when Angela from HR appears beside my cubicle, eyes wide with concern and barely suppressed anger. Your parents are in the main lobby, she whispers urgently. They told reception that Claire was in a car accident and they need you to come immediately for a family emergency. Cold dread washes through me until I spot the text from Claire complaining about Emma's school lunch menu, time-stamped 3 minutes ago. I take a screenshot and add it to my evidence file before heading to the lobby. I find my parents arguing with Marcus, our young receptionist, Mom dabbing at completely dry eyes with a tissue while Dad demands I be produced immediately. Family emergency, he barks at the clearly uncomfortable young man. Her sister's been hurt. We need Madeline out here right now. I just received a text from Claire, I say, stepping into view with my phone held up like evidence. She's perfectly fine and complaining about cafeteria food. Mom drops the tissue act instantly. Madeline. Thank goodness. We've been so worried about you, sweetheart. You haven't been returning our calls. Ms. Carson. My boss Kevin appears beside me, his expression carefully neutral but protective. Is everything all right here? Dad attempts his most charming smile, the one that used to work on my teachers when I was young. Just a family matter, Kevin. We'll borrow Madeline for a quick chat. My family appears to be fabricating medical emergencies to disrupt my workday. I tell Kevin loudly enough for the entire reception area to hear. I apologize for the disturbance they've caused. Building security escorts them out while I return to my desk, ignoring the stares and whispered conversations. Let them talk. The truth is finally more important than appearances. That evening, I discover Claire's latest attack, a GoFundMe page titled, Help My Babies Have Proper Bedrooms, Family Crisis, with my photo prominently displayed without permission. The description paints me as a heartless sister hoarding space while innocent children suffer. One email to the platform's legal department about unauthorized use of my image, and the fundraising scam disappears by morning. My father's voicemail that night slips from calculated rage into accidental honesty. You ungrateful little. Do you know what you've cost us? We had buyers lined up for your house, everything planned out. We were going to handle the whole transition whether you cooperated or not, and now you've embarrassed your mother in front of the entire congregation, the neighborhood association, half the town. I saved the recording with grim satisfaction. Sometimes people reveal their true intentions when they think no one important is listening. When Hammond & Associates announces an opening at their expanding Denver office, I find myself weighing opportunity against what might look like running away from conflict. Would relocating mean they won? Or would it represent the ultimate victory, building a life completely beyond their reach? My support system rallies around me like a protective wall I never realized I had. Nathan sends formal warnings to my family outlining legal consequences for continued harassment. Dr. Brooks helps me craft responses that stay firmly factual without engaging their emotional manipulation. Kevin offers flexible scheduling during what he diplomatically calls this transitional period. Your house needs better perimeter security, says Rachel, my realtor friend, walking the property lines with professional assessment. Motion sensor lights here, and definitely reinforce that back door. I'd also recommend security film for the windows. I'd expected to face this battle alone. Instead, I've discovered allies who value my peace of mind and recognize toxic behavior when they see it. People who understand that family relationships should be mutual, not one-sided extraction operations. The tide slowly begins to turn. My cousin Beth calls hesitantly to ask about the other side of the story. Uncle Paul messages that he doesn't think it's right, what they're asking of you. Even some of Claire's social media campaign backfires when mutual friends comment, "Why can't you and Jeremy provide for your own family? And isn't Madeline single? Why should she house your kids?" Their carefully constructed narrative is developing cracks, revealing the selfishness and entitlement beneath the family-first facade. The job offer email arrives Friday afternoon like an answered prayer. Senior Marketing Coordinator Denver office glows on my screen like a beacon of possibility. For the first time in weeks, I smile without reservation. Colorado represents more than a career advancement. It's freedom, space to breathe, and the chance to build relationships based on who I am rather than what I can provide. That night, I draft my acceptance letter and start researching neighborhoods in Denver where no one knows my family's version of my story. 1 year later, the Rocky Mountain sunrise streams through windows I chose myself, in a duplex I can afford without help, decorated exactly the way I want it. No one has rearranged my furniture or criticized my color choices or suggested improvements that serve their needs instead of mine. The wall beside my home office blooms with photographs of my new life, hiking trails in Colorado National Monument, shaking hands with the regional director after my promotion to senior marketing coordinator, standing proudly in front of this duplex on closing day. Not a single picture includes my biological family. My phone rests on the kitchen counter, its screen occasionally lighting up with notifications. A year ago, I would have lunged for it with heart-racing anxiety, terrified of the fresh accusations or demands waiting for me. Now I glance at it with casual indifference. Unknown numbers go straight to voicemail, and several familiar contacts have been permanently blocked. Outside my kitchen window, my garden thrives in neat raised beds. Tomatoes, basil, and jalapenos, vegetables Mom always dismissed as too ethnic for our palate, flourish in the Colorado sunshine. Bright purple petunias line the walkway, their cheerful faces turning toward the light. At 10, I had begged to plant marigolds near our front door. Too common, Mom had declared with that particular sniff of disdain. We're putting in roses instead. Much more sophisticated. I bite into a sun-warmed cherry tomato from my own vine and smile at the burst of flavor. The doorbell chimes at noon, and friends arrive carrying gift bags and covered dishes, their faces genuinely bright with happiness to see me. No hidden agendas, no unspoken expectations that I'll sacrifice my comfort for theirs. Happy birthday, Madeline, calls Lisa, my colleague who's driven 90 minutes from Colorado Springs just to celebrate with me. She sets down a bakery box with a flourish. Chocolate raspberry cake, as requested. Not apple pie? Asks James, another coworker who's become a genuine friend. I've always preferred cake, I answer, the simple truth filling me with unexpected joy. Especially chocolate. For 32 years, I dutifully endured apple pie on my birthday because Claire loved it and Mom insisted making separate desserts was wasteful when you girls can share. The realization that I'd never actually expressed my own preferences, let alone had them honored, would have been devastating once. Now it just feels like evidence of how far I've traveled. Lisa arranges candles on the cake while I pour wine into glasses I selected because they felt right in my hands, not because they matched someone else's dinnerware. "What should we toast to?" asks Maria, the neighbor, who brought me homemade salsa when I moved in, asking nothing in return except friendship. "To building homes, not just houses," I say, raising my glass toward the afternoon light streaming through my chosen windows. "And to the family we choose for ourselves." The words settle warm in my chest as we clink glasses, the sound like tiny bells celebrating freedom. On the wall near my front door hangs a simple wooden key hook holding exactly one key, mine. No spares hidden for emergencies, no copies held by people who see my space as their backup plan. Just one key for one person who has finally learned that solitude is not the same as loneliness. Later, after everyone leaves and I'm loading the dishwasher with plates that actually got used for their intended purpose, I find myself thinking about Connor, the graphic designer at our Denver office. Yesterday, I watched him shrink into himself as our creative director dismissed his portfolio ideas without consideration. The familiar posture hit me like recognition, the same way I used to make myself smaller around my family, trying to take up less space so others could expand into mine. "Actually," I had said, interrupting the creative director mid-criticism, "Connor's approach could save us significant design time and appeal to our younger demographic. Let's explore this direction." The surprise and gratitude in his eyes reminded me of my own reflection the day I finally stood up to my family, the shock of being defended by someone who had no obligation to protect me. My phone buzzes with a text from Alex, the environmental lawyer I've been seeing for 6 weeks. He respects my boundaries with a reverence that once would have felt foreign but now seems like the bare minimum requirement for sharing space in my life. "Still on for hiking rabbit ears past tomorrow?" The message reads, followed by a mountain emoji. I smile as I type back, "Absolutely. Can't wait." Before turning off the lights, I scroll through my phone's photo gallery and pause at an old family picture saved in a folder I rarely open anymore. Everyone grouped tightly together in artificial happiness, me positioned slightly outside the frame as usual, wearing the strained smile I perfected over 3 decades of trying to earn my place. After a moment's consideration, I delete it permanently and replace it with a photo of my front door, painted the bold turquoise I'd always wanted but never been allowed to choose. Some members of my extended family have started reaching out cautiously. My cousin Beth calls occasionally to check in, respecting my boundaries when I don't want to discuss my parents or Claire. Last month, Uncle Paul sent a card saying he was proud of my independence, though he was careful not to take sides in what he diplomatically called the family situation. These tentative connections happen entirely on my terms, with clear expectations that they respect my choices even if they don't fully understand them. As I settle into bed in my perfectly quiet duplex, no one stomping around upstairs, no voices carrying through thin walls about what I should be doing differently, I consider the question that sometimes surfaces in quiet moments. Was complete separation from my parents and Claire necessary for healing? Could I someday attempt to rebuild limited contact on my strict terms, with ironclad boundaries and zero tolerance for manipulation? Dr. Brooks and I have discussed this possibility in our monthly video sessions. Healing doesn't require reconciliation, she reminds me. But it doesn't preclude it either, if you ever decide that's something you want to explore from a position of strength rather than guilt. For now, I'm content with the life I've constructed brick by brick, choice by choice. Every decision, from the Saturday morning yoga classes to the friends around my birthday table to the career path I'm pursuing, reflects who I actually am rather than who someone else needed me to be. My last thought before sleep is not about what my family might be doing or whether they've learned anything from losing me. Instead, I'm planning tomorrow's hike with Alex, considering whether to pack sandwiches or stop for lunch in town, thinking about the photography project I want to start capturing Colorado's wildflowers through the changing seasons. For the first time in my adult life, my thoughts belong entirely to me. The mountain air carries the promise of snow even in late summer, and I fall asleep planning a life that belongs to no one but the person who chose to claim it. 3 months later, I receive a letter forwarded through my old workplace. The return address shows my parents' house, written in Mom's familiar handwriting. I hold the envelope for a long moment, feeling nothing but mild curiosity about its contents. Inside, I find a brief note, "We hope you're well. Claire and Jeremy bought a 4-bedroom house on Pine Street. The children have their own rooms now. We would like to visit sometime if you're open to it." I set the letter aside and return to researching apartments in Portland, where Hammond and Associates is opening their West Coast office. The promotion would mean another fresh start, another chance to plant roots in soil that's never been contaminated by others' expectations. Some stories end with tearful reconciliations and lessons learned all around. Others end with a quiet satisfaction of a door closed firmly but not slammed, leaving space for possibility while protecting the peace that was so hard won. I choose my own ending, just like I finally learned to choose everything else. The letter goes into my filing cabinet, acknowledged but not answered. My life has room for many things now: adventure, genuine relationships, professional growth, creative pursuits, the simple pleasure of eating chocolate cake on my birthday. Whether it has room for people who once saw me as an extension of themselves rather than a person deserving respect is a question for another day, another year, another version of myself who might feel secure enough to risk that particular experiment. For now, the mountain sunset paints my windows gold, and I have a life to live that belongs entirely, uncompromisingly, and joyfully to me.